I'm going to take my little clicker from Mark here. Here in just a second, I'm going to invite Mark. Is that Mark? He doesn't mind giving up the clicker, do you? Mark will go off into research. The lesson that we have today is this is a lesson that I thought, my mom is going to be here. Let's choose something, she was traveling, let's do something that we can take advantage of that. And I just thought, I've been here now almost 10 years, so I thought maybe you guys wouldn't mind hearing a little bit more about the faith that happens in my family. And so we used this lesson today, just this one verse from 2 Timothy in chapter 1, verse 5, where Paul writes to Timothy. Timothy is a young minister off at a church, and he writes to Timothy, he says, right here in the beginning, I am reminded of your sincere faith, the faith that lived first in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and now I am sure lives in you. Thanks be to God. This is the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ. Thanks be to God this day. But it's just, this is the truth. The fact is this has been passed on, right? This is grace. We have received this faith as a gift of grace. And in my family, it was my mother and father that were so significant. I was richly blessed in that. But now I'll just, how I like to start with something funny. And I'm going to invite my mom up. But I heard something the other day about the woman comes into church and they see her for the first time. And so she comes up and there's an usher there, and he's going to lead her down into the service of worship, into the sanctuary. And he said, "This is your first time, isn't it?" And she said, "Yes." She said, "And I'd like you to usher me right down to the front so I can hear the sermon." And the usher said, "Well, I don't know about that." He said, "Our pastor is really rather boring, and I'd hate to bring you down there, where he's going to put you to sleep." And she straightened up and she said, "Excuse me." It says, "Do you know who I am?" And he said, "No." He said, "I'm the pastor." She said, "I'm the pastor's mother." And I missed him here from out of town. And the man turned bright red, and he said to the woman, he said, "Oh, excuse me, do you know who I am?" And she said, "No." And he said, "Good." And he turned tail. But in any case, with that, I'd like to invite my mother forward. And we're going to just sit up here and we're going to have a little conversation about, I think what I'll do, Mom, is we'll come down here a little bit. You guys can see us a little bit better if we come down here. So let's just take the chair down. I'm going to make Mom move her own chairs. But in any case, this is my mother, Martha Harris. And Martha and I, we've been doing this, Mom. I guess it's funny, because Mom's in the Episcopal Church, and she's a pastor. Where's that clicker? She's what they call it. Mom, in the Episcopal Church, what do they call the pastor of the church?
Well, it's a rector.
A rector.
Yeah. But, yeah.
So Mom is the rector of Trinity Episcopal Church in Apalachicola, Florida, which is, I think, from what I understand, the second oldest continually operating church in the state of Florida.
Yes.
So Mom's been there, I think, is it now 10 years?
12.
12 years now that Mom's been the rector of this church. I don't know, can you hear that? Does that help at all? I gave it to you because I talk plenty loud. In any case, you wonder where my son gets it from. But Mom and I have been talking, and Mom has been, she's been down here since Thursday night, so we've had some chance to visit. And just last night, it's funny, we were talking about, I said, what are we going to talk about? Mom said, "I've been studying up on the text." I said, "Don't worry about it. We're just going to talk about..."
I was studying on the gospel because I thought the gospel's from John. It's a great story about Jesus healing the man born blind. So that's the one I read and talked about. So I get here and Kenny says, "Oh, we're just going to have a conversation all day."
Right.
So she didn't really tell me what.
Well, and that's because, Mom and Mom's church, they are very, very structured, very, very liturgical. So that's why I joked when Mom first came. I said, these songs that we're singing are going to be unfamiliar to Mom. This is a different style of worship.
But I have been a Christian, just like surprise.
Oh, okay.
And I've been Baptist, and I've been Methodist, and so.
Well, and that's kind of what we were talking about, because the story and the lesson is about, it says, I saw this faith first in your grandmother and in your mother and now in you. And so Mom and I were talking about this last night and talking about the journey of faith. I said, Mom, what about your journey of faith and what led you to become an Episcopal priest? And Mom started to talk, and I said, well, wait a minute, what about way back when? And what about way back when? So you've heard me tell the story of how when I was born, my mom, I said this to my mom last night, Mom says, yeah, I know. You know, when I was born, right? When I was born in the hospital of Baptist Hospital in Louisville, Kentucky. My dad was a seminary student at Southern Seminary as a Southern Baptist.
Yes.
Right? I'm going to show you a picture. This is what our family looked like. Mom's like, she didn't know I was going to bring this on her today, but this is our family. There's 4 children in our family, but this was when they were very young, and I'm the oldest. I'm the oldest, and my brother Andrew and I were visiting with my mom just yesterday, and I thought about this picture. But you remember,
This would have been in 76.
this would have been a little later, right? But how it all got started from my perspective is my dad was a student at Southern Seminary, and I was born in the Baptist Hospital, and we even have the receipt. They gave a discount to seminary students, $40. It cost $40 for me. Right? And I said that to
worth it.
and Mom said, oh, I remember all too well. But it kind of reminded me, we started talking about, I said to Mom met my dad back when they were college students at Centre College in Kentucky. And Mom was sharing about how when they first got together, my dad was the leader of a Bible study. After dinner, he would do a prayer group. And so she said that their first date was that he invited her to go. His uncle was a preacher in that area. He was doing a revival.
He wasn't in that area, though.
Oh.
Kanan had not heard the story. Let me tell
You told me.
Kanan's uncle, Jimmy Harris, was an American Baptist minister, but he was up in Tennessee. But he was doing a revival, and this would have been around the central Kentucky area. So Bob asked me to go with him, and I thought the whole prayer group, several people from the prayer group were going. But later he said, no, he really didn't invite anybody else for the prayer group. He just invited me. And we went out to this little country Baptist church where he was the preacher, but he also led the music. Kanan's father's family is very musical, so that's where he gets that. In fact, I wish his grandmother could come out sometime. She's now 92, and she would have some stories to tell. But anyway, Jimmy was doing the whole service, so he led the music and he preached, and he also was an artist, and so he would do this. He would do a painting, pastel drawing while he was preaching. Has anybody seen that in a church service? So it must have been a thing that people did then. Maybe they still do it. But so the whole time he was doing his sermon, he was drawing this landscape of the place, which I don't remember now, but it was impressive. I was surprised. I'd grown up liturgical Methodist, so I'd never been to a revival. And I'd never been to a church where they led music, where someone led the music, you know, like a, what do we call it? Anyway, it's all different. Yeah, like a praise concert. So it's all different. But it was interesting. So it was beginning.
Well, and that's what we were talking about, because I said to Mom, I said, you went to this college, and here was this guy, you know, who was a kind of a country preacher type of guy. You know, he was from Georgia, you were from Virginia, my dad, and he was, you know, why was it that you were drawn to that? And I never asked you that question.
Your dad wasn't a country preacher, but he came to college, was I think a philosophy major. Grown up in the Baptist Church, First Baptist in Lawrenceville, or Cochran and then Lawrenceville, Georgia. And I think having been in church all my life, I was really a thinker. I was kind of wanting to believe and to make sense of faith, and I felt like I wasn't quite there. So what I found in school, and the rest of my life really, was to kind of feel it in my heart. I realized over the course of my life that it became less an intellectual project, that I need to believe something and understand it, but faith-seeking understanding, rather than understanding seeking faith. appealed to me at the center in a prayer group every night after dinner was that group of people trying to be faithful and being just relational with each other rather than a church and study orientation. So I think it was speaking something from my heart.
It touched something in your
In my
heart.
heart.
Whereas you're very much academic. My mother's very much an academic type, and so to think that, what I thought that might be, why would my dad, what would speak to you? And it's a quality of heart, I think. And of course, you might recognize if I talk about the journey that happened. We started off in the Baptist church. My dad trained to be a Baptist minister, but then I was probably about 8 years old when we left the Baptist church and we went to a Methodist church.
Yes, but he never finished seminary.
Right.
We were there at seminary when Cain was born, but he left seminary and went into academic affairs.
Right. But then we went into the Methodist church for a time, and then we were in the Methodist church for a time, and then we went into the Disciples church. So what do you remember about why did we go from the Baptist to the Methodist to the Disciples? Do you remember?
Well, part of it was just where we lived. We moved, and there would be this particular church, and actually there was a Methodist church that was extremely influential for Canaan. Bob Murphy.
That's right.
You were, gosh, how old were you? Your brother,
Oh,
Michael was about 4, so you were about 8. And that was a small church in Winterville, Georgia, out of Athens. And after this minister, Bob, left that church, they founded a retreat center. And they would do, you've already talked about this.
I never talked about it.
They would do, what's it called?
It's called Cove Crest.
No, but what
It's a
did they
passion
do?
play.
Passion play, but I can't remember that. But they were both musicians, and they had a beautiful musical family, and they would do this passion play around the little lake, and it was mostly musicals.
Well, and the big point was my dad was cast as Jesus for about 12 years in that play. So even though we moved away to Missouri, we would come back every summer to be part of that play. And then the kids, like I remember growing up, like we started off as shepherd boys. I think eventually I got to be a Roman soldier. You get to be a part of something like that.
And I was married.
You were married.
So I got to be 20 years
It's a
older
big
than my
deal.
husband. It was lovely. We were there for about a week, and
Every year.
well, I guess it was just maybe a long weekend. But anyway, we were there for about a week. I think that's an important, those things.
That was significant.
You lose them in your memory, but it's an important part of your
Well, because
foundation.
we're talking about, I'm the oldest, there's 2 other kids came after this. And so we're talking about, well, why did I come into the church? The other 3 kids are not active in the church. So we were talking about, a lot of it has to do with, we had those formative experiences when we were young. And, that was a foundation of something. For me, I've had a heart for the church all my life. The others, I don't know, the same experience somehow inoculated the others against church.
Well, no, because by the time they were older, we were going in different directions. I was telling Katie last night, remembering that when we were in Columbia, Missouri, we were actually involved in 3 churches. Which I will say now is probably at least one too many. Because we were members of the downtown church with our children, and then Bob, Kane's dad, my ex-husband, took a position as a licensed minister, supplying for a historically African-American church. They lost their pastor, so he went there to do that church for almost a year. And in the meantime, I went with the children to Rockbridge Christian Church, which was more of a mission church, and taught Sunday school for that church. So we were involved in literally 3 different churches in Columbia, Missouri.
And that was significant too in these different churches. But, I guess the long and the short of that is ultimately my mom and dad divorced as a result. And I would even go back to say, perhaps that was evidential when we were involved in 3 different churches that you guys were you're going in different directions.
Well, I think it's, the heart of the family is not in one place. We don't all have the same experience, and we didn't realize it at the time, but we were fragmented, for seemingly good reasons, because we were involved in these various ministries. But we didn't divorce until after I was through seminary and working, but at that point I was a two different denominations. So
Well, that's
it's
where I
very
think
complicated.
Well, and I think that's where I remember you seeking a call to ministry, is during that time, I think you were,
When we were in
you
Columbia.
found a call to ministry, and then that's what started your journey of being an Episcopal priest.
That's right, and that was really coming from the Disciples Church with the Reverend Maureen Dignan
That's
in
right.
Columbia, Missouri.
You all,
which
some
just
of you
retired
met
last
Maureen.
year.
Maureen came out to give my installation, so she's still a mentor and a dear friend of Mom's. But Maureen inspired Mom to go on to seminary and pursue a career in ministry.
That's right. But you know, at the very beginning, I was thinking about this when I was sitting back there. I think when I went to the women's quadrennial, when I was a disciple person, and I went to the women's quadrennial, and I think it opened the world up to me. I think I realized that I needed to have a more active life in the church. And I was always one of those people who liked to sit on the back row. You know, I just didn't really have much to say. Unbelievable. Kane is the talker, one of the talkers in the family. But as time went on, I just thought I wish more women were speaking up. It was one of those you kind of look around and you think, well, if she won't do it, you know, I wish this person would do it. Maybe it needs to be me. Maybe I have to do it. So I reluctantly come up to the front.
Well, and this is where I think for Mom, if you think about it, in the Southern Baptist Church, women didn't have much of a role. And then I think what happens, the disciples have had a role for women for a very, very long time.
Yes.
But Mom went
Yes.
into the Episcopal Church, where women had actually only been ordained in the Episcopal Church since 1979. So Mom was
A little earlier.
well, something like that. But
76.
still, you know, Mom was kind of a trailblazer in some of that.
Well, no, I would say that my background in disciples is what gave me that sense that women had a strong role in the church. And in fact, Maureen said to me, what are you doing going to the Episcopal Church and leaving our wonderful denomination?
Because when Maureen was an Episcopalian, and then she came into the disciples, because there wasn't,
Yes.
at the time, there wasn't a place for Maureen in the Episcopal.
Yes, yes, yes.
And I remember, you know, it's interesting, when I went off to college, Mom made a real point in my first semester as a freshman that I take a women's studies course. That was important for Mom. Mom had 3 sons, and it was important to her that we had a perspective. I remember that.
Well, but there was that fabulous teacher there
Right,
too, and I read her,
the
what was
University
it,
of Georgia. Yeah.
oh, no, I'm thinking about seminary. When you were in
Oh,
Yale,
well,
you took a
of
course from,
Margaret Farley.
yes.
Right, that's right. But in any case, that's been part of the dialogue between my mom and I. My mom with 3 sons, you know, and then she had a daughter that came later, but with 3 sons, it was very important that we could be sympathetic towards the different perspective.
And how does Canaan do with that?
Well, and I married, you know, my wife Nikki is also a disciples minister, so it's kind of like, you know, so I've given that same trial to my children that you guys gave to me. We'll see how.
Too much.
Right. Well, I'm a lot of church. We've got a lot of church stuff there. You know what? And I want to, because we only have so much time, and we've got an extra communion. I want to ask you one last thing, and that is, have there been any challenges? You know, you and I have both been in ministry approximately 20-some years, and you know, so it's funny how because you did this later in life, so it's funny how our time in ministry is tracked together, and that's given Mom and I a lot that we have some conversations about. But would you share as we close, have there been any particular challenges of being in pastoral ministry and relative to the other roles that you have?
Well, I think I reflected on that a little bit to say simply that a family can get too busy with so many important things that you lose sight of yourself. So I would say that now I'm going to retire probably within about a year.
And there's Mom's
and,
church. This is the historic church in Florida, in Apalachicola.
And someone told me recently, Martha, when you're facing retirement, you need to think about doing the things you really want to do when you're retired and start doing some of those things. And I realized that what I want to do is stay in closer touch with my family. And I would say that being in a church family, that takes so much attention. The people do and the work does, and it can be so absorbing that I don't. Kane and I almost never talk on the phone. You know, we certainly don't talk every Sunday or something, because we both just have too many things going on. So I want to be more retirement, and it'd be like the Cat Stevens song of, you know, the dad never had time with the son, and then when the son wants time with the dad wants time with the son, the son says, I'm just too busy, Dad, which is exactly what his father had said to him. So I don't want to get retired and want to call them once a week and they never answer because, you know, we never had that, we never established that. So I think it's the keeping, honoring your own family is something that God teaches us to do, and being a role model for dad as well as a priest or pastor but that's just, that's one of the most important things one can do, even in this.
Amen. I think that's a good note for us to close our conversation on, and we
I
have
didn't know
to.
this was going to be an interview.
Yeah, well, that's right. Well, we got to start somewhere, don't we? But I feel so blessed to have my mother here, and I just say, let's give God the glory and give thanks to her. We're going to be having another conversation. This is just an extemporaneous conversation, so if you happen to be around for second service, you'll know.
I mean, wait if.
Yeah, we'll see what comes up. Right.